Was your character, Dave, based on anyone real, or was he a compendium of people, or how did that work?
No, he was entirely invented, I think. I mean, I'm sure Don must have had maybe some people in mind when he was writing. I don't know. We sort of invented him, I guess. He wasn't based, as far as I know, on anybody in particular. He's sort of he's not really a Rolling Stone journalist as he claims to be. So I don't think he's based on it, as far as I know, on anyone.
Right. Is it kind of nice in that way that even though you're in a film filled with real figures, you're liberated from that. You don't have to worry about sort of the shadow of a real person hanging over you.
Well, not really. I mean, it's sort of usually like that, I guess. I mean, mostly. Well, not mostly, but a lot of the time you're playing characters that aren't real people or haven't existed. Occasionally, I've played people who have actually, been around and whose interviews you could watch or whatever, and then you're trying to nail them, what they feel like and look like, as Don was trying to do, I guess, with Miles. But in this case, it wasn't the case. I was just trying to play the guy on the page, really.
Right. What was your knowledge of Miles Davis and this whole era and this genre of music going into this?
Well, I didn't know a great deal about him. I mean, I was very familiar with some of the sort of iconic photographs that have been taken of him. I knew very well some of his music. His last two albums, for some reason, that must have come out in the mid-'80s or late 80s, I know very well. I don't know why. And then some of his earlier stuff, Kinda Blue, was the soundtrack to a play that I was in London a long time ago, and we only used Kinda Blue as our soundtrack for the play, and so I was really familiar with that piece of music. And Sketches of Spain is another one that I know very well. But a lot of his stuff, Bitches Brew, and a lot of his sort of more experimental or avant-garde stuff, I just didn't know at all. And so, and then one of the things, I knew that he used to play with his back to the audience. That's one of the sort of facts I had in my head about him. But really very little else, other than I felt like he was very cool and probably quite difficult.
Yeah, it seems like it. Do you feel like the sort of the jazz era and also in a way like the glam rock scene that you portrayed in Velvet Goldmine, do you think these are the kinds of musical events that we may not see again in the modern era, just because the way people listen to music is so different these days, and there's not that kind of community anymore that forms around certain musicians?
I don't know. I mean, I would hope not. I'm sure there'll be new things. I don't think the two are really comparable in that jazz has never stopped. The glam rock era was very short-lived, and although amazing, quick and done. And whereas jazz has never stopped, and it's always seems to be evolving, as like Miles Davis carried on and never was content to settle into a style, but always trying to find a new sound and a new way of playing. And I feel like jazz is always rolling forward. Whether there must be new things come out. I mean, in my lifetime, it was. I suppose the club, raves and acid house music, and then, the electronic kind of scene, and there's always been something coming out.
Real quick, if they wanted to do a Star Wars spin-off around Obi-Wan, would you be interested in getting back into that character in that world?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think it'd be fun. I always thought that'd be a good movie to make between episode 3 and 4. We could call it 3.5.
Perfect.
Yeah.